I think we are live now. Let's go. So hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we have Pushpak with us. We're gonna read Laravel Boost docs today, and we will also gonna chat about it a bit as well. So let's see how it goes.
To be honest, I didn't thought like it will get 50 likes. I just
Uh-huh.
wanted it to wanted to do it for the fun to see if I can get engagement that way.
Oh,
But yeah, great to see like people wanted us to read the boost talk. So yeah,
yeah. So that's pretty nice. Let's go ahead. I don't know. What do you think? We should start with um sharing your screen. I guess so.
yeah, sure. So currently, the boost docs is not in the main Laravel website, and
Okay.
I can show you the new boost web page though. This is how new Boost web page looks like though. It's
Okay.
much more beautiful than the previous one. You can also look at the installation guide if you are looking at specific code editor to
Mhm.
use, then you can just use that specific instruction to follow or add those MCP server which Boost offers. And if you have manual install, then this is the way you can run the MCP server. It's
Okay.
a nice little website which you can see. I think I like this one though. It's very nice and sleek.
Yeah. By the way, we are live on Facebook, uh, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, and YouTube. All of them. Oh, you stopped sharing your screen?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I will be sharing the whole window so we can explore a couple of things along the way.
Yeah. Okay.
No, okay, I think I shared the wrong one. Perfect. Perfect then. We should start then without
Yeah.
doing. But before that, do
So,
you want to
yeah.
do you want me to explain what exactly the boost is? That anyway we will
Yeah,
be
that,
covering
that
that.
will be that will be awesome, I guess.
So I think we released this in the start of the September. This package called Laravel Boost. The Boost is a MCP server which is offered by the Laravel team itself, and it comes with its own MCP server and the guidelines using which you can actually do the AI assisted coding in much better way. So if you are using any tools such as Cursor, Claude, any AI agentic coding tool right now, Codex, Gemini, CLI, all sort of things, open code, Cursor, then you can use Laravel Boost to improve that code generation which happens for the Laravel code specifically. And yeah, that's mostly like in a very simple high level understanding of Boost. So now let's go through the documentation one by one, and we're just
Okay.
gonna read it out and then we can discuss along the way if we have any questions. Okay,
So, yeah, I will try to disturb you if I have a
perfect.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So,
I will tell you before we start. You should zoom it a bit. Yeah.
is this fine?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect then. So, Laravel Boost accelerates AI assisted development by providing the essential context and structure that AI needs to generate high quality and Laravel specific code. So, as we mentioned, like use this is not gonna generate the AI code, but this is gonna help your AI code understand your Laravel application structure in much more sensible way, and it will help understand all those things. Then, as it's as its foundation, Laravel Boost is an MCP server equipped with over 15 specialized tools designed to streamline AI-assisted coding workflows. The package includes composable AI guidelines specifically crafted for Laravel ecosystem packages, ensuring consistent and framework-appropriate code generation. And also, like along with the Boost MCP server, Laravel Boost also provides you a set of guidelines which you can configure the way you want, and it has like a highest level of configuration. So if you are already using any sort of guidelines, then you don't also need to like change those. You can actually plug them inside the Boost, and Boost will add those guidelines on top of it, so you can configure the way you want actually. So let's suppose if you are using inertia, filament, live wire, anyway, so whatever you are using, you can compose in that same way. And along with that, which I think the most important thing which Boost offer is the documentation API. So we'll talk about it. So Boost also features a powerful documentation API that combines a built-in MCP tool with an extensive knowledge base containing over 17,000 pieces of Laravel specific information. And I think like at the time it was 17,000, but now we have added another packages also in that, the MCP,
Yeah.
the Wayfinder, and all other stuff. So this is much more, and we are planning to extend it much more for all the Laravel ecosystem packages. Uh, and then pieces of Laravel specific information, all enhanced by semantic search capabilities using embedding for precise context aware result. So what will happen is Boost comes with this search docs tool where, let's say you are AI agent, let's say you are working on some queue, right? And recently the background queue has been released by Laravel. Now,
Yeah.
as a LLM or AI AI agentic model, they will not have any idea that what how does Laravel background queue worker works. But using this search docs tool, they will know, they will get the syntax, they will know the documentation, the config, and then AI agent will try to find the way around the background. So you just have to mention, can you implement the background queue worker for this specific task? And then if you are not using Boost, then AI agent will hallucinate, and it is a possibility that they produce a correct code, because Laravel API is very fluent and deterministic. So using that, they can might able to generate it, but using Boost, it will be very much certain that 99% of the time it will generate the correct code for that specific task. And as like the most important thing, Laravel Boost is currently in beta. There is a frequent updates as we refine features and expand capability. So again, the agentic coding is again a very new term overall for the industry, and currently I think it's not going anywhere for now. Future, I think as in a day to day, I think we have to be using, like I use AI agents, AI agents as many possible. So like even for smaller coding tasks, I just mention couple, like I have always opened couple of AI agents. I just ask them to do this small refactoring, do small this stuff, and most of the time, I never, like only if there is a very structured structured refactoring I have to do, then I uh, do that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. Then
Yeah.
let's go to the installation. So someone asked, where is the rag is stored and which vector DB it uses, how it is converting text to embedding. So there are a couple of things to that, how the rag working. So uh, uh, separate ingestion model written for all these different repositories. So what we do is on periodic basis we scrap the documentation of all these websites. We use OpenAI embedding models to generate the embeddings. We use typesense to store all those embeddings, and apart from that, there is also certain types of
Your voice is not coming. Now it's coming.
Just give me a minute.
I can hear.
Oh yeah, okay, perfect. So, like there is a hybrid search which works. So if it does the full text search plus on top of it, it does the semantic search also. And then for every single request, it goes through that same process. It generates the embedding search using those embeddings, and then give you the relevant documentation check. Which so AI model will send to the API that I need to search for the live wire uh, make uh, component or make class, something like that command, or let's say Laravel Q background job, something like that. And then using this query, the semantic search will be done, and then based on the result, we will be returning those into the API response. It's a very simple rag, you can say. We have to work on it a lot now to improve the result, improve the accuracy of this rag. We are currently monitoring how it performing and everything. So over the next few days, we will be also improving and improving how this entire retrieval will work. So you will see a lot of improvements into the search docs tools. So that will definitely help your boost to like your AI agent to generate more correct code. Okay, so now we can go to the next where Laravel installation Laravel Boost can be installed with Composer, which is Composer require Laravel slash Boost dash dash dev. And the thing with the Boost is most of the people actually do it incorrectly. Is after they install it, after they run the
So
install. Hello.
I want to just ask you that you are not facing any noise from my side, right?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, no noise.
Because there is some DJ ongoing right now.
Okay, but I'm not hearing any noise. So yeah. So after installing the Boost, now there are a lot of things we have changed into the installation for last couple of days. One is to adding the sale support only if it's detected. So only if you have installed the sale package, then only it will ask you to like confirm if you want sale installation or not, or if you are already running sale artisan boost install, then you don't even like that prompt won't be like even asked because it will consider that you wanted to run this command as a sale package. So that's one thing. Earlier there was a confusion, and that's why we added this specific line into the readme, and this, which was I think contributed by Chinmay. uh, so there was a confusion that whatever file it generates, the boost generates, like there is a MCP configuration file, then there will be a guideline files and all sort of files. How it will work? So here we are gonna like we have mentioned, like after running boost install, the first thing you have to do is, and again this is a opinionated thing, you don't have to do it just because we are saying, because what happen is every time you run boost install or boost update, right, this gonna they're gonna all these file will be generated again. So you don't have to like kind of push them into the git basically. Why? And that's a very interesting reason, because let's suppose I am working with a cursor or cloud code in my local setup, and Punyapal, you are working with Codex or open code in your setup. It's a personal preference. Again, if there is like every team has some specific tool which they wanted to mandate to use, they can use it, and they can actually add this into their Git file. They can basically track all this into their Git file. But what happens most of the time is I use all the different tools and you use all the different tools. Every single time I run the boost install, those files gets generated and those files like get added into your that git changes basically, right? We don't want that, because what happens whenever you're gonna run boost install again and again, this file will be deconstructed from the scratch based on your configuration. So let's suppose Punyapal, you are using Sail, and I'm using Herd basically for my local development. They all the MCP config and all sort of things will be conflicting with both of us, right? And that's why we wanted to make sure that all these files shouldn't be git tracked. So the first thing you have to do is after downloading boost install is adding this file into the git ignore folder, git ignore file, and then uh, you don't have to worry about it basically. The boost will be installed and all sort of thing. Also, the main thing is Boost JSON also is there, one file which is generated based on your editors and based on your configuration. So basically, if you are using herd or if you're using sail, based on this store all this kind of configuration. So this is also something which you shouldn't add it to the Git track, because this will be only for your specific local machine, not for the entire team to be shared. Again, this is very opinionated thing. If you want to do it and you know what you are doing, then you can definitely put this in the Git tracking basically. But unless there is no like a very strong reason, you should not add them into Git. You should always ignore those files, generated files, and then you can not like, you don't have to worry about it. So that's one thing. Once Laravel Boost has been installed, you are ready to start coding with Cursor, Cloud Code, or any AI agents of your choice. And there are a lot of people are using whole sort of AI agents right now, like people using Kiro, AMP, C-Line, and all sort of things, which I don't use by the way, but people are using the Boost with. Then set up your code editor, and this is specifically gets very annoying for this specific AI agent, because then you have to manually set up all this. Even though if you have a configuration file, they sometimes work correctly, but even if for the PHP Storm, it doesn't work out of the box. You have to go there and manually enable those MCP servers. So that's the configuration to actually enable the MCP server into the PHP Storm. Like you have to press shift twice to open the settings, and then search MCP settings, and then enter, and then search Laravel Boost, and then apply at the like after that you have to enable the Laravel Boost MCP server and then click apply. Same thing happens for VS Code. You have to open the command palette using command shift VA, whatever setting key bindings you are using. Then you have to enter the MCP list server. Then you select the Laravel Boost and press enter. Most of the times with VS Code, it gets automatically added if it's correctly part of your config. You don't have to enable it. It will just ask you for the prompt, do you want to enable this MCP server? And then you just click it yes, then it will enable by default. You don't have to do it manually. Same thing happens for Cursor also, because it's a clone of VS Code. Again, every single time it detects any MCP server added into your file, it just asks for your confirmation if you want to enable it, and if you mention yes, then it will enable. Otherwise, you can go into the settings and then turn on the toggle for the Laravel Boost. Cloud Code also works most of the time same, but unless it's not working you for specifically, then you have to run this Cloud MCP add minus this local minus t stdio Laravel Boost PHP address and Boost MCP config, which is nothing but just tailing that into us that API Cloud MCP add command. So now that is done, how many MCP tools are there, and these are also configurable. Most of the time people don't know that they can actually configure, they can enable the tools they want, they can actually add their own tools. We can see about that how they can do that, but for now,
even I don't know.
yeah, like all these tools are like opt-in by default, but you can actually exclude them if you are not using any of this, and you can configure it the way you want. So there is one application info tool which is very much important to understand. So it reads the PHP and Laravel version, database engine, list of ecosystem packages with version and lookup models. It's helpful because then your AI agent will understand which version of Laravel code it wants to generate. It will understand the information about your application, so it can work much more predictably. So let's suppose for the authentication, if you are not using user model and if you are using organization model, then it might need to know that, right? You have to either specifically mention it. Otherwise, application info will detect that you are not using user model specifically, and then based on your relocant model information, it will just pass that to the front end, and then front end will figure out that organization model is using for the authentication, or all sort of things. Like you can list down all the packages you are using and all sort of things which are actually mentioned. Then the browser logs is another one, which is I think the very interesting tool. Basically what happens is that with the Laravel you get the backend errors. Any error happen, right, they get streamed to the laravel.log file. You can actually read them. That's a very clear interface. But what happens if there is a problem into your JavaScript file? There is no way you can actually listen those into the backend side of things, and the PHP Boost MCP is running backend. So what does this browser logs is? It actually injects a script, which basically any error happens on the front end, it streams back to the log file, the browser.log file, and then not browser dot. There is a log file which all these logs get stored. The front end logs where like if there any error happens on the front end, like console.error or like console.log, if you are something doing something like that, all those get streamed back to the backend, and then you can actually read logs. Then you can give the context of those front end errors to the Boost, basically your AI agent. So then this AI agent will use browser log to find any issues happening on the front end, which I think was specifically designed by Ashley, and I think I also use it daily, and I really liked it. The next one is a database connection. It also checks how many database connection you are using and which one you are using the default one, so that let's suppose if your AI agent wants to write any specific query or specific index, and if you ask it to optimize the queries or all sort of things, then it will know the context which database it's using. So whenever you're gonna do this, the Boost should actually call the database connection tool, get the correct information about which database you are using and all sort of things, and then proceed with the task. Again, the same way database connection, the database queries also works similar way. If Boost wants to run a query in order to debug some certain things, right? And it only runs the query which are not destructible, only the select queries or some sort of like a read queries, basically, not a update or delete queries. Okay, so it can execute the queries again with your database. Then there is a database schema, which can, if you call it, it can give it, it will read the entire database schema and it will give it back to you. Then there is a get absolute URL, convert relative path URLs to absolute, so agent generate a valid URL. So sometimes what happens is if you want to, like agent is doing specific task, it will either like give you the PHP addition like localhost 800 slash anything. And if you are using herd, you like that doesn't work because you might have to run PHP addition serve in order to run localhost 8000. In that your case, it might need specifically like xyz.taste or something like that, right? So in order for that specific thing, get absolute URL will basically call your backend, and in order to understand what exactly it's using, is it using the seal, is it using the herd, is it using any specific, and what exactly the URL is, and then based on that, it will just give you the URL for that specific thing to taste on. So you don't even have to go and search all these things yourself. Then there is a get config, get a value from the configuration file using the dot notation. Again, it's a very simple thing. It's just gonna read the config and then gonna return that config value to the AI agent so that they can see what config are you using. Let's say if you're using 45 tasks, then in order to understand which config you are using, like which features of 45 you are using, what values of configuration you are using in the 45.php, it needs to read that config. And this is tool actually basically helps to understand that how it uses that. Yeah. Then last error, again using this tool, AI agent can fix the last error. So let's suppose after doing some task by AI agent, there is a error which is happening on your you are getting a backend error, right? You can just mention that there is an error coming up, can you check the last error and fix it. Then what it will do, it will call the last error will be returned back to the AI agent, and then based on that error, it will try to figure out what exactly went wrong and try to solve that issue for you. The list artisan command, it is again nothing but a PHP artisan list, basically used to list whatever artisan command which are available, so that they can use this to generate PHP artisan. Like if you are running, if you want to generate controllers, models, or something like that, what all options are there and all sort of things. List available config keys. Again, this is the same way. What all configuration keys which are available into the config files, so that if it wants to change any specific config in the 40 file, let's say it wants to add specific two-factor authentication, enable two-factor authentication, then it can correctly enable it using this tool.
So available keys is just, show the keys, not the values, right? So
it just shows the
basically,
keys, yeah, which values which are configurable basically.
Even though, I mean, if you are not showing them, if your env is exposed to mcp, not mcp, your agents, they will gonna read it anyways, right?
They can read it. Like now, I think yes, that's a one definitely good point. Like currently, there's a lot of tools which you are saying they are kind of redundant. What exactly the AI agents can run it? Like multiple AI agents can run. They can run PHP Addison list to in order to understand the specific command. They can run minus minus help to get that specific thing. So yeah, that's where we are experimenting. We gonna mostly add a like we see how gonna like which tools are being used most of the time. We're gonna see that's what we're gonna experiment the next step like in the next steps where like we want to see
Yeah.
like are whatever the tools which we are shipping, right, are they actually useful or not. If they are not useful, then it doesn't make sense to actually ship them, right, because it's gonna add a context, right, because whenever
Yeah.
you
So
ship those two.
mhm. So what I understand is we can configure these tools, right? So by default, you can make them to make those tools disable, right? And if
Exactly,
anyone wants
exactly.
to use them, then and then it will be enabled, right?
Yeah, ideally
Mm.
that's what we are planning. So then there is a list available env vars, again the same thing in respect the available environment variable keys and also the values in this case. The
Okay,
list
wait.
drop does nothing.
The gate config is there, right? So
Yes.
that will actually gonna read the values as well, right?
Uh,
Right.
I think so. I think so. I'm not sure actually. I don't think so. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think so. It's gonna read the values of config. It's just gonna
See,
return whatever values which are possible.
to get a value from configuration files using dot notation, right? So basically,
That's
if
yeah.
we,
That's gonna be the env variable. So
yeah, so
sometimes
it is
it can
like,
be the env.
so basically what
You're talking
I'm
about
saying
this.
is services dot OpenAI dot API key, right? So they can read those keys, right, at the end,
Yes, the value will be returned.
right?
But
So
in
what you
certain
guys
case,
are
it
mhm, planning to like,
certain
yeah, continue.
certain case it wants to read the env variables, and certain case it wants to run the config variable. So config variable can be hard coded.
Yeah,
Not always it depends on the env, right? It can be
right.
hard coded. It can be a part of PHP code also,
Yeah.
right? But env is just specifically gonna read to like need to run a specific env.testing, env.example, and all sort of things. Because by default sometimes the cursor doesn't give permission to read the env file. I'm not sure if it's enabled now, but sometimes
Mhm.
it used to happen like cursor doesn't give used to give the
Yeah.
permission.
So this is all I understand. Basically, what I wanted to ask you is if I have config like services dot OpenAI dot API key, right? Or maybe secret as well. So does this get config tool will help them to read those configurations?
So it will first call the gate config to get the service.openai. It will see if
Okay.
it's env configured, and if there is a default value, it will say that this is the default value, but there is a env variable. Then it's gonna call the list available env vars, and then gonna give the actual value of that list available env vars.
So somehow like you guys are planning to add some like configuration to ignore the configuration values and API env var values for the MCP.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Hmm.
Then there is a list routes also, which is like PHP Addison route list. It's again that command we have created the MCP tool out of it, which all the flags and all the options is support. Then there is a read log entries. It can send like I wanted to read last 5 log entries, and it will just return the last log entry. Again, it can run. It can read directly the Laravel.log file, but it's just a nice lab because Laravel.log is a very can get very big sometimes. So it's just
Yeah.
a fluent wrapper to read a specific like last 5 logs, last 10 logs, something like that.
Yeah.
And then there is a report feedback. You can just mention
Mhm.
this is not working correctly. Please fix it.
Yeah.
This is. annoying, you can just mention that please give boost feedback. XYZ is not working as expected, and this will work.
Again, search docs and Tinker.
Yeah, the search docs, I think we talked about it. The query, the Laravel hosted documentation API service to retrieve the document based on the installed packages. And the good thing about the search doc is it's always keep the version based on this application info, right? It always
Yeah.
pass that application version, like the package version which you are using, and based on that version, it returns the doc. So
Okay.
it always happens like that. So let's suppose if you are using livewire 3 docs, then it's gonna always gonna return the livewire 3 chunks. It's not gonna return you the livewire 4 chunks or livewire 2 chunks.
Yeah.
So that's also the baked in there. And then Tinker is nothing but a wrapper on top of PHP Artisan Tinker, which just can run the code, uh, like whatever code it want to runs to debug couple of things, want to couple of classes, and want to see if everything is working fine. Then it's just gonna run that the way normal debugging we do. Like we try to generate a like new user, create something and then see if something is working correctly. The same way it's also if need, then you can give the access of the Tinker tool. Then, as we mentioned, there is also the guidelines which are there. So, available AI guidelines includes the Laravel Boost includes AI guidelines for the following packages and the framework. The core guidelines provide the generic, generalized advice to the AI for the given packages that is applicable across all the versions. So that will include how what exactly the code is. This is a Laravel package and all sort of things. The guidelines like that, how to work with the boost, the tools it's offer, whatever the basic guidelines around that. Then if you whatever the Laravel framework you are using, there will be core guidelines, which is like a combined guidelines which can be shared across Laravel version 10, 11, and 12. And based on the version which you are using, then it will just add those guidelines. Then there is a Livewire guideline, which is again the same way the core one, and whatever the version of Livewire you are using, the same way it will be added. Then there is a filament. Then there is a Flux UI, the Herd, Inertia Laravel, Inertia React, Inertia Vue, Paste, PHP Unit, Paint, Tailwind CSS, Livewire Volt, Livewire Folio, and then enforced trace is something which is a conditional thing. So how does this works is if it detects like in a already generated application, it detects there are a lot of taste classes. It assumes that your project needs taste, and then based on those taste classes, it adds those guidelines conditionally.
Yeah.
Like
So basically,
always
you guys
generate
were, yeah, basically you guys were ignoring those example test files.
exactly. Like if in a new application we want to enforce the taste, but that sometimes people doesn't like it, and this is just
Yeah.
unnecessary waste of tokens if you are doing tinkering and some sort of things.
Yeah. But nowadays, look, previously, what was happening is AI was writing good tests, and somehow nowadays AI is not writing such good taste. I don't know.
It's that's I also noticed though. Maybe we need a PHP unit MCP now.
Could be. I mean, PHP unit or PHP has it, or maybe Nuno was saying that if page 5 will have something, it will be related to AI.
Yeah, it's a MCP thing. Definitely, we wanted to like add to the page like how to write the test cases. We can define the guidelines based on how the test cases needs to be. There are different types of
Yeah.
test cases: unit test, integration test,
Yeah.
how the test needs to
So,
be structured, how to test
mhm.
specific components, Laravel specific
So
test. That's something I'm
yeah.
also wanted to explore for the booster.
As we have PHP artisan test command, right, and which is automatically detects if you are using a PHP unit or paste, right? So can we have like a test runner MCP tool? I don't know if even there is a logical thing or not.
No, so most of the times what happens is we basically tell that if you want to run any specific thing, always run check the composer scripts, and if there is a composer run taste or something like that command or PHP addition taste, they can use that to run this taste command basically. And if they most of the time the batch tool is available to all of those AI agents now.
Yeah.
Nowadays, like Cursor has it, the Cloud Code has it, all those,
Yeah.
the major AI has those, so they can able to run tests.
Yeah. GitHub
One thing
Copilot
which
also
I,
has it.
yes,
One thing I want to
one,
tell you is uh, the GitHub Copilot agent, or we can say the in a VS Code, it also has those. Uh, I mean, direct. See, we also have taste runner sidebar in the VS Code, right? So basically, where you can run all the taste at single place without even going into the files. And GitHub Copilot has access to those sidebars as well. So it runs without even running the commands. So that's what I was trying to say. Like similar thing we should even can have in a I mean MCP of pushed.
so one thing I talked about Nuno is, and we wanted to add this. I'm not sure if, when we can though. To add a agent related agent flag to all this paste and bind. So what will happen is currently if you run compose a PHP ID sentence, there is a dot 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 dot, and if you are like in Laravel Cloud or like Nightwatch, there are thousands of tests. So
Yeah,
that always like every single time your AI agent is running PHP addition test, there is one test wrong. Then that every single time it's adding, there is an unnecessary context which is being passed every single time. Even if you run with a compact mode, right? That
yeah,
unnecessary thing is happening. So that is also something which we I think Nuno will gonna ship that very soon though.
yeah.
Uh,
I have heard about that. Yeah,
So, so that way we can basically run it. There won't be some dot. If it is successfully done it, there will be yes or yeah passes or something like that. And if something fails, only the exception of that specific test cases, like what went wrong and what happened, or let's say 3 4 test cases fail, then it will just send that 3 4 test cases fail, and this is the specific information about that. So it's gonna help AI much more focus on that instead of just adding those extra tokens, because if you run PHP addition test for that those many big file every single time, it's gonna waste of time, it's a waste of tokens, it's waste of your basically API calls also. So yeah, that's something definitely gonna help us.
okay. Okay.
Now, keeping guidelines up to date, you may want to periodically update your local AI guidelines to ensure they reflect the latest version of the Laravel ecosystem packages you have installed. To do so, you can use the boost update artisan command, and this is something which Nuno shipped. This is like a stellar feature. I would say one of the best feature boost has shipped so far, which using which you can run the tests on demand basis. So if tomorrow, let's suppose if you are using third party packages guidelines and they like update some kind of a guidelines in their own way, you can actually benefit of those guidelines in your code in much more sense. Like what I mean by that is, let's suppose you are using Prism package, and
Yeah.
Prism now has a very solid guidelines, right? Every single time you don't have to run boost install. You can add this into the post composer, like post update CMD composer script in that way. And every single time you run composer update, it's gonna see which version of the package you are running, which packages you have already configured to use as a third party packages, and based on this, it will just install those guidelines again. You don't have to maintain, and that's why the one reason I again discussed you why we wanted to add all these files into the git ignore, because every single time you're gonna run composer update or composer install again, if you have already done it, it's gonna run composer update which will generate all these files,
Yeah.
because its files are actually supposed to be generated on demand. Unless you are
Mhm.
doing something
Yeah.
very specific, you
Of course.
shouldn't be
So
adding those to your
yeah,
git.
one thought I get is which is we have the Laravel skeleton, right? Laravel slash Laravel. So we can add those I mean files or folders into ignored Git ignored directly into the skeleton. So when people create new projects, by default it will be ignored, right? You know?
I wanted to do this, but we had a consensus, because if we started doing this with Boost install or maybe something like this, what will happen is, uh, this is something we wanted to give a opt-in feature and not something we wanted to
Of
opt-out
course,
feature.
of
Because
course. So what I'm saying is not when Boost install is happen. What I'm saying is just add it to the skeleton, right? So if user not want that, they can remove it. You know?
So that's why we wanted to
Yeah.
give a opt-in feature functionality and not an opt-out feature. Like if they don't like if they want to use this feature, then they are supposed to use this, not the other way around. Because this is
Correct.
something which is very opinionated. Like this is I think the most opinionated thing Boost is gonna do.
Yeah.
And
So yeah.
many people don't actually want that much control in their workflow. Like they don't want you to see you should supposed to add these files into your git ignore, right? Like they most if they are using if you are only developer, then doesn't make sense to add this into git ignore. You can just
Yeah.
if you are tinkering around, then doesn't mean make sense to add this into git ignore. So that's one thing. Unless it
Yeah.
becomes much more mature, industry started using it, then we can think about it. But at this point, I think it's a we wanted to keep
Yeah.
it opt-in.
Yeah, so most of the times everyone uses in a team, right? So basically all the paths of in MCP and all is different, right? Basically, even if you see .vs code and all are already in a git ignore, right? If you aware. So basically, if you are doing some for the VS code and GitHub Copilot, it will be by default in git ignore. You know what I mean? So basically, you can also do maybe same for others, but yeah,
But Punyapal, there is another team where like some teams wants to ship their preferred extension,
yeah,
the VS Code config also along with the same
of
way.
course.
So the entire team becomes much more opinionated. They can work up
Yeah.
to the speed. Sometimes they are using dev container, so they
Mhm.
always wanted to share those files.
Right.
So this was very much opinionated
Yeah.
thing, and that's why we decided not to keep it as a like a
Mhm.
force user for this.
Yeah.
Like we just wanted to add this. So if you want to add it, you can just easily add this into git ignore.
Correct.
Maybe down the line we can add a prompt in the installer boost install that do you want to add those file into
Mhm.
git ignore, and we automatically add them for it.
Yeah.
But for now, that's the thing we are
This is the way.
thinking
Yeah.
about.
Mhm.
And currently, I think we have to update this also. We recently added Wayfinder docs.
Mhm.
So available
But I mean,
documentation is Laravel.
these and the previous one is different or the same? We also discussed
Which you
similar
are talking
thing.
about.
Scroll up
This
here.
is a documentation supported by the Search Docs tool. Those were the
Oh.
guidelines.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Understood. Understood. Now I understood.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is like in the guidelines we had I think more or less the same thing, but Laravel the React one has a different guidelines, the Vue one has a different
Yeah.
guidelines and all sort of.
Mm-hmm.
So same way we
Right.
have like Laravel framework documentation ingested up to version 10, 11, 12, Filament 2, 3, 4, Flux UI 2, the free one, and 2 version the pro one, the Inertia 1
Oh.
and 2, Livewire 1, 2, 3, Nova 4, 5, Paste 3, 4, Tailwind CSS 3, 4, and I think this is the feature which I have worked on. So I have worked on adding Filament, then I've worked on adding Livewire documentation, Nova
Mm-hmm.
documentation, not Paste, I think. Paste I didn't work. So all this documentation basically I kind of worked on. The Flux UI also. So adding the documentation is a challenge in a sort because every documentation structure has a different website.
Yeah.
Um, Either there is like a global standard way using which we can get the documentation, and most of this website has that kind of way. So if you look at the Laravel framework
Yeah.
documentation website and the Paste documentation website, they are more or less similar. The
Yeah.
Tailwind CSS actually had that MD version supported out of the box on their website, so ingesting it was a very easy choice for us. The same thing, Nova also supported llms.txt out of the way because we are using Mentlify and using the flag, we can just enable llms.txt file onto the Nova. So we already had that llms.txt enabled. So again, adding that entire thing was very much easy for us. Paste, I think also similar. The major conflict was for the filament because the filament has a lot of interactive examples also, if I'm not wrong. Like they have a
Mhm.
code and they have an example. How does this work? Or is it with Flux? Okay, I think is it with Flux where they have
It
a
must be Flux. Yeah.
they have a code, and then in the on the top of the code also they have shown how that component looks like. So they have a very different way of documentation. So ingesting them had a little bit of effort, like we had to make sure the how the content is, then remove unnecessary content, because if we are storing those code related examples, it doesn't make sense. Inertia also had supported llms.txt, so it was also very easier to ingest that. Laravel framework also supports llms.txt version, so that's also easy. Overall, it was easy, but yeah, like for some specific, we have to figure out another way how to, like for Livewire and Flux, I would say we had to Livewire, Flux, and Filament. We have to think about like how exactly we're gonna ingest these docs, and we had to write a custom ingester for each of this website.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, they also have open source. Uh, GitHub repos, right? Those couldn't help because there
we
is
thought
MD files only, right?
we are doing more or less like that only, but some places those MD files are like not MD files, they are blade files.
Oh,
So like then transpiling the blade doesn't make sense for every single time we are ingesting. So what we did is
yeah.
we decided to scrap the website itself.
Mm.
So for I think Paste, Laravel, and Inertia, we are using the same way. We are using the GitHub docs, and then we are just taking the markdown, removing. Again, there are some places where we have to think about, like in Inertia docs, where there is like a React code is a different, Vue code is a different, and Svelte code is different. Then we have to kind of
Oh,
think
yeah.
about how to strip that and all sort of things. So all those specific
Physics.
custom elements are something which are something very hard to
Mm.
figure it out.
Yeah.
So we like after a few days we want to think about how to add or extend this specific documentation which are supported into the Boost, so that third
Yeah.
party popular packages can add, not everyone, but the third party popular, like some splashy packages, or uh, very like Saloon, the Prism, the most used community packages, how we can actually ingest those guide documentation inside the search docs, because it's gonna
Yeah.
help everyone in the community. So we first had to see if every, like we have to must first support like every documentation website needs to support llms.txt. Otherwise, then writing a custom ingestion for each one doesn't make sense. It's gonna be a very huge maintenance overhead for us also. If we're gonna get the llm.txt directly made out of it, our like job will be very easy to add. We just have to change the URL, and then we can just add that, because we'll know how to fetch the links, how to fetch the specific markdown for each and every single page, and all sort of things. So that's one thing we're gonna experiment. We're gonna see how we're gonna extend this specific feature to all of this ecosystem. And I think overall it's gonna very much help everyone. So there are a lot of
Mm.
community package like patty permission package. I think every single one who uses who build a serious application want to pull in that package, and having those documentation built into the Boost gonna make sense a lot. So yeah, that's gonna be the next pretty cool feature of Boost. Then the next thing is adding the custom AI guidelines. And as I mentioned when we started, right, like configuring the custom AI guidelines is the first focus of the entire thing, because these guidelines are very much opinionated, and I know like everyone in the Laravel community, we always wants it to be opinionated. So your application will also be have some kind of opinion. So let's suppose if you are using multi-tenancy, right? How to connect to those specific things, how to do all those sort of things is actually something which you need to understand, right? So to augment the Laravel Boost with your own custom AI guidelines, add blade.php or .md files. Earlier, only the blade files were supported. We recently added a function to support the markdown files. Using markdown files, one thing like you get a syntax highlighting. If your content is static, the guidelines are static of sorts. Like let's suppose there is no composable things which is happening. Let's say you don't want to generate those guidelines based on certain specific condition, then you can actually use .md guidelines, and it will respect the both of these things. And then based on whatever the format you're using, they will be included into your general Claude.md or agents.md file. Then what you have to do is, if you want to add your custom guidelines, is you have to create .ai/guidelines folder, and inside that you can add as many guidelines you want, very specific guidelines. Let's say you can add a guideline about how to deal with a multi-tenant database, or how to add a user in a multi-tenant database, or how to test these specific things in this multi-tenant thing. Then you can name those .md or something like that, how to add this into like basically whatever you want to name that rule. And then whenever you're gonna run Boost install or Boost update, what will happen is it's gonna track your custom guidelines. It's gonna get the Boost opinionated guidelines, combine them and add them into your own global guidelines of sorts. So you can configure the way you wanted. The guidelines will be always up to date according to your preference. And again, you don't need to maintain multiple configuration files. The one thing is like, you don't need to maintain agents.md, cloud.md. You just maintain one copy of it, and then Boost will take care of generating agents.md and cloud.md for both of you. So you don't have to worry about syncing those guidelines also. So it's a one good important feature of Boost, which is no one, like a lot of people are not using, but I think they should use. They can mention there if they are using any specific file structure. They can using a specific things which they are like very much doing, and they know what they are doing. Let's say they are using any specific packages or any specific preferences they want to use. Let's say they wanted to always use events into their application as much as possible, then they can mention like always use events as much as possible. And one thing which we're gonna add, and I think there is also MR open for this, is to currently these guidelines basically add after the Boost guidelines, but we wanted to actually move the position of this. So first the guidelines will be added, your custom guidelines will be there, then the Boost guidelines will be there, and then there will be a third party guidelines. So that will be the order of the guidelines. Now coming up to the configuration part, there is overriding the Boost AI guidelines. You can override the Boost built-in AI guidelines by creating your own custom guidelines with matching file paths. When you create a custom guidelines that matches the existing Boost guideline path, Boost will use your custom version instead of the built-in one. So again, if you're using inertia and in the actual Boost guidelines, there are certain ways which you don't want your AI wants to code and generates the code, right? You can actually customize the Boost generated guidelines also. The way you can do that is inside your .ai file, right? You just have to follow the folder structure. So let's suppose if you want to override a filament guidelines, you will create a filament folder, and whatever guideline which you wanted to let's suppose if you are using 4 versions, so you have to create a 4 folder number, and then you can just rename the core.blake.php, and then you can just change this file the way you want. So the next time you run Boost update, instead of taking the Boost guidelines, it will take your guidelines and it will just generate those composable file to you. So you understood this. This is, I think, the most important feature of Boost, which will help you make Boost as much as configurable and as much as possible, like nearer to your application code. So which way you can actually ship much correct code according to your application instead of just relying on the Boost guidelines. These guidelines are based for these are the basic guidelines which doesn't force a lot of people to generate a lot of things. But if you want to be much more opinionated, you can actually override these guidelines. Okay. So for example, to override Boost inertia React v2 form guidelines, you create a file in this format like the same way discussed. When you run the Boost install, the Boost will include your custom guidelines instead of the default one. Now this is a third party package AI guidelines, which is again, I think not a lot of packages which are using right now, but they can actually do it. If you are a package maintainer, Punyapal, you are a package maintainer, you can definitely add this. You have that I think many to many relationship, right? Some extended relationship, eloquent relationship package.
Yeah.
So you can actually add, if you maintain a third party package and would like to Boost include your AI guidelines for it, you can do by adding into your root folder, add the resources /boost/guidelines, and just add whatever the guidelines which you wanted to add to your packet, and then you can just run Boost install every single time. It will ask user which guidelines it wants to use, and then Boost will automatically load those guidelines for you. AI guidelines should provide a short overview of what package does, outline any required file structure, convention, and explain how to create or use its main feature. Keep them concise, actionable, and focus on base practices so AI can generate correct code for your user. Example guidelines looks like this. Like this is a package name, this is a functionality provided by this package, these are the features, and this is how they can use the feature. Very simple, so they will know how to do it whenever they want to generate that. Manually registering the Boost MCP server, and one thing which is important is that you never have to run this command yourself. This command will be always run by the MCP client. So the moment you run this command, there is some certain kind of protocol which like the communication protocol which needs to happen using the MCP client, and this MCP server will be running MCP, like it will accept some that same MCP command. So if you run this command yourself, there will nothing happen. It will just close that connection after certain time that it didn't got a correct JSON. This will be always run by the MCP client. It will try to run this command on certain environment like PHP Artisan Boost MCP, whatever you have mentioned. It will try to run in that environment. If you are running VS Code or PHP 7, it will run it and then basically try to communicate with your MCP server. Again, this is something which is configurable whatever way you are using. If you are running sed, you have to run .vendor/bin/sale. The way you run PHP Artisan command, the same way you have to pass the entire thing. And this uses STD/IO transport. So instead of communicating on the HTTP transport, it uses the STD/IO. So communication happens through the standard input/output instead of the HTTP. Again, this is an example of the how you can add this. Then you can mention the command which you want to run. In your case, it will be the executable command. It will be the PHP. It will be the vendor.bin/sale. It can be the Docker also if you are running inside the Docker. And then whatever the command is basically Artisan and Boost MCP. So if you are running Docker, then Docker exec -i your container name -it and then Artisan Boost MCP. Adding support for other IDs and AI agents. Boost works for many popular IDs and AI agents out of the box. If your coding tool isn't supported yet, you can create your own code environment and integrate it with Boost. To do this, create a custom class that extends this class and implement one or the both of the following contracts depending on what you need. Again, this is very least used feature. Again, if you are not using any very weird AI agent, then you don't need to actually use this feature. Is again same as extending the cache configuration or extending the mail configuration of the mail facade, right? The same way you can actually extend this. Like let's suppose if you are using any specific third-party tool. So I will show you one example where some has Boost extended IDE. So someone has actually used this feature and actually released this package called Boost IDE bundle, and they are maintaining the agents which are actually not supported by the Boost in a first party way. So you can see the C-line, kilocode, kilo, rucode, try, var, whatever which we are not supporting in the Boost are actually supported by this package. So you can actually contribute if you want to whatever the environment you are using, and then it's not supported by Boost, then you can actually use this to actually
So
do
why
this.
we are not adding it to the booster?
Because of the maintenance overhead, like we don't want to, like currently we also want to explore now the ID related specific stuff. Now we wanted to explore how the cloud hooks will work, the specific skills and all sort of things. Then we wanted to explore that. We will not be able to explore this like if we added a lot of support, then we have to maintain as a first party. We can't discontinue the support for the specific tools. So we are very much careful like which coding agents we want to add support for. Again, for example implementation, you can look at the cloudcode.php file and implement that yourself. We boost facade register, like provide this method using which you can register your own ID. Boost register code environment, you can define the key and the class which is actually
Yeah.
implementing this.
So I think
And
this is the last
once
last
you
part, right?
register, yeah, and once you register it, you can run Parish practice and Boost install, and those IDs will appear into your Boost install configuration, work the way you
Yeah.
wanted
I was
without
thinking
doing
we will
anything.
complete it in a half hour, but it took almost 1 hour.
There's a lot of things and a lot of interesting thing, to be honest. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
are not using this, but
Yes.
which they
Okay.
should.
So we will conclude this one because
Yeah,
uh, okay. So we actually read all of the docs, but we actually
yeah,
just
we
not
talk.
read it. We also understand like how things are working as well, right? Mm. So this was the good. Thanks for joining, guys. Uh, See you in the next one. And yeah, don't forget to install Laravel Boost if you are using uh, Pushpak. Your chat will not displayed in the those chats.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Bye bye. See you guys.